The Honorable former State Representative from Belknap County, John Plummer. John Plummer.
Hey, thank you. I am John Plummer from Belmont. I've been a resident of Belmont 33 years. Lovely place to live. We have horses. I'm going to give a little bit of a montage about what I am, what I believe in, what my family values are. We have kids and grandkids and a great-grandchild on the way in the area. My wife is a registered nurse, has been for 35 years. My personal history, and first of all, let me back up and say, I agree with everybody else that's spoken and is going to speak. I think we're into the fight of our lives. All politics is local. When you see a sign up that says "Save Gunstock," looks innocuous, it looks like it's nuisance, but it isn't. There's a lot of big money behind it, and it's going to dump here. The message is going to flip at the election. So all politics is local, and we need to take that absolutely seriously among us in this room. Whoever gets elected can't forget that it is still us. We all share a very core of similar values. So I wouldn't say that 90% of what I share is shared by Dave. I think each of us has our strengths, which I would hope to make my case as Dave will make his as the election goes on, as to what we can do specifically and differently for the state as a state senator. But we are Republicans. We look down the middle of any list that we publish on our websites or hand out, it's the same. It's pro-life, it's pro-Second Amendment. It's reducing government to the lowest common denominator. Why the hell would anybody give up personal rights to have somebody else tell them what to do? That's just plain idiotic. So, for personal background, the Plumbers have been around New Hampshire since 10 generations. William Plummer was a governor in 1812. He started the National Archives. His picture is in the state archives. So the Plumbers have been in and out of politics for decades. I'm a veteran. Like Dave, I went on active duty in the 60s. I was a chemical officer and a captain. If anything I learned out of being a chemical officer during the Vietnam era is don't touch that. So that has served me well. Much of I spent a total of 34 years first on active duty and then working as a research scientist for the Army. And so this is mundane and probably boring. My last job was the Army's executive agent for environmental programs. Why do I say that? Because that was federal service, but I understand the way the federal government does business in the environmental world. So when I got out, I started a small business where we were looking with colleagues back in Maryland. I was stationed at the last of my government service in both the Pentagon and in Maryland at the APG, if you know, Aberdeen Proving Ground. But what that taught me is how to do business within the government, the way the government works. All it does. Only thing to remember. We did technologies that are akin to what you find on the Mars rover. Only we reduced them to handheld versions that allow you to go into the field and look for bad things. In Maryland, we were looking for IEDs and hazardous threats that were impacting the military. I now have a company here in Belmont, have had for Belmont and Guilford for 12 years. And we look at very much the same thing. We apply same kind of laser-based technology used on the Mars rover, but in handheld applications. This is the middle part of what I think I'm good at. And I'll get to that in just a minute, but let me jump to say, why did I sign up to run? And I was the last to sign up. I got a letter from Eversource saying my utility bill was going to increase 53%. I got a letter and an email from Eastern Propane, where I buy my fuel oil, himself says, be prepared, it's gonna be $6.50 a gallon. So it scared the bejesus out of me. And it was that last minute letter that I got that said, my God, if how, you know, my wife and I are okay, but no one's okay unless you have an extra $30,000 or $40,000 in the bank to pay for these unknown expenses. So that became critical. How are you gonna how are people, the average people, without that kind of cushion, going to survive this coming year, when everything cascades through the inflation rate? We're at 8.6 inflation rate for New Hampshire.
9.1.
9.1 now. When I saw on the news this morning that the typical increase in cost per month for a family of 4 in New Hampshire is $520, over what they were paying a year ago. So how, unless you're working full time, there are a lot of you folks that are, well, you're all younger than I am, but how do you live on Social Security and a retirement when you're probably gonna pay an extra 12 or 15 grand a winter just to survive? That's bad enough. I had a fundraiser earlier this afternoon with a neighbor. He owns bagels over in Guilford next to Patrick's. He is the poster boy for small business success, and I would urge each and every one of you to go meet Craig Broder. Craig and I have been neighbors for 33 years. They own Hickory Stick Farm in Belmont. What's important about this? Craig's a family man, small business owner. So what happens with all these horrific charges and increasing inflations when it's you and I and a family? When you have an extended family and those are the employees working for you. So Craig's position, and this is what I'm going to focus on, is that, by God, he's gonna have to build a garage with apartments in it to be able to keep his senior managers, 2 locations, just in housing. Housing his managers have gone from $650 to $1,500 a month for an apartment. So you have to cook an awful lot of bagels to be able to have help that's gonna be sustainable. And in his business, it's not quite like electronics, but it's still quality help that comes in at 4 in the morning and makes bagels. And by the way, when Craig told me he was going to do that, I said, well, how the hell can you earn money making bagels? And he, by hard work, investing all of his 401k for he and his wife into buying the business, turned a $350,000 a year business into a $1.5 million business. The point being, we were very difficult to do business with for a small business entity to get the funding to do something like this. So, my personal background, to continue with it, is my 2 top rants are affordability and small business. And basically it's small business and business development. And what uniquely qualifies me for that, well, I've had a small business for 20 years. We are government contractors, so I don't worry so much about hiring help off local help. But I still have all the same issues. I have all the issues of taxation and regulation. Secondly, I served on SCORE, which was the Senior Corps of Retired Executives. I was the chapter chair for 5 years here. I've seen probably 100 small businesses come and go through, and the purpose of being on SCORE was to be smart about all the aspects of small businesses. So, and I think I am. And like Dave, I went to graduate school. I'm an environmental scientist, and I did a management program with Northeast. I went to UNH as a New Hampshire Sun. I went to Northeastern for management. I went to the University of Lowell to become a materials engineer. So I know a little bit about running small businesses, but I know a whole hell of a lot more about making them successful and trying to negotiate both the paperwork and the business plan to make money last until the end of the month. Everything I have and more background is on my website. I have more of these glossy palm cards for anybody. As I said, I firmly believe between Dave, Tim, and myself, all of us share 90% of the core values, or 95% of the core values. We differ in 5% of specific capabilities. The school board is something that we're expecting great grandkids. So we're a little out of touch for the school, but not really. We are eminently involved in healthcare. My wife is a geriatric nurse, which she says is handy at home. I don't know what she means. I'm eminently involved with doing business with the government and negotiating the government bureaucracy. I really don't have a whole lot of anything else to say except what's published on the website, and certainly would entertain questions. I do want to thank Craig for hosting a fundraiser. We had a very reasonable turnout, and we got a chance to meet folks in the neighborhood.
Questions for,
Yeah.
you didn't mention that you were a state representative at one point, but you were a state representative.
I was a state representative, and even more importantly, I was a state representative under the tutelage of John Hunt, a core fortune name, but it was the Commerce Committee. And we had the unique distinction of putting through more bills in a year than any other, actually probably any other two committees.
How about any questions for Representative Plummer?
Plummer. You want a card so you can remember the name?
You know, they always say, you can never get a plumber when you need one.
Well, here you go. Questions?
Any questions? Questions? Thank you, John.
Crop TV.